Good morning and welcome to the licensing meeting, 22nd of May 2024. Have we any apologies, please?
Just that West Sussex Public Health aren't attending.
Okay. Item 2, to receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any matters of this agenda.
No.
None? Thank you. The procedure of the licensing panel will follow in considering this application is set out in the Licensing Act 2003. Its attendant regulations and was agreed by the Licensing Committee on the 2nd of February 2005. The licensing panel, in accordance with the Rule 14 of the Licensing Act 2003 hearings, Regulations 2005, decide to exclude the public from all or part of the hearing where the licensing panel considers that it is in the public interest to do so. Don't have any. Point 3, to be agreed by general affirmation, the minutes of the previous meetings held on the 8th of November 2023.
I can confirm those, Chairman.
Okay, so I wasn't there. And the 23rd of January 2024, and I can confirm that. And if the solicitor will verify that the minutes are
I think you can just each verify those minutes. So you've each verified your own minutes.
okay.
That's fine.
So are we happy that the minutes are accurate?
Yeah.
Thank you. And could I have your agreement to accept them?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, so we go to item 4, application to review the Premises Licensing Act 2003.
Chair, thank you. Members, the matter before yourselves this morning is an application to review a premises licence under the Licensing Act of 2003. The report before you provides information in order that you can determine an application for the review which has been submitted by West Sussex Trading Standards. Their application, which is attached at Appendix 1 to the report, has been made in pursuance of Section 51 of the Licensing Act 2003. And it's been made by West Sussex Trading Standards for the review of a premises licence, namely at London Road Food and Wine at 65 London Road, East Grinstead. I would point out that this premises is also now known as Bodrum. The grounds for the review relate to the licence and objectives of the prevention of crime and disorder, the promotion of public safety and the protection of children from harm. At this point, I would point out that in the review application and in the report, it mentions that the inspection visit was made on the 4th of January. That, in fact, was a typographical error on the initial review application, and the actual inspection visit was made on the 3rd of January. So in the report where there's reference to the 4th of January for the visit, please be aware that that is in fact the 3rd of January. It makes no difference to the actual content of the report and the substance of what was found. The review cites the seizure of a quantity of illicit or unpaid duty tobacco during this unannounced inspection visit by Trading Standards on the 3rd of January and the subsequent inquiries that have been made into the incident. There are two further responsible authorities, Sussex Police and West Sussex County Council Public Health, who have submitted representations in support of the review application. Now, the panel must determine this matter on the evidence presented to it during the hearing, having due regard to the Licensing Act of 2003, the Mid-Sussex District Council licensing policy, and the Home Office guidance which has been issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act. The background to this matter is, the premises concerned, as I say, is at 65 London Road, East Grinstead. It's known on the premises licence as London Road Food and Wine, although it has changed the shop name to Bodrum. The premises licence hasn't been updated accordingly by the premises licence holder. It's been licensed for the sale of alcohol consumption off the premises since August 2014 under licence number PWA 0487. The premises licence holder is present is Mr Ibrahim Kamaram, and the designated premises supervisor is his brother Mehmet. I have attached a copy of the current premises licence and the conditions at Appendix 2, which also detail the licensable activity, which is the sale by retail of alcohol for consumption off the premises every day between 0800 and 2300 hours. The premises opening hours are also detailed on the report. The premises itself operates as a local convenience store in East Grinstead Town Centre, and there are photos of the store for the members at Appendix 3. Now, West Sussex Trading Standards have applied for a review of the premises, a licence based on the seizure of illicit or unpaid duty tobacco that took place during an unannounced inspection of the premises they conducted on the 3rd of January. They cite that they have received reports of some businesses in East Grinstead also selling oversized vapes and vaping products to children under the age of 18. And as a consequence, at 2 p.m. on the 3rd of January, their officers conducted an unannounced inspection at the premises. Upon introducing themselves, they completed and served notice of their powers under the Consumer Rights Act 2015 to the premises licence holder who was present at the time. As officers were completing the paperwork and explaining the reason for the visit, the premises licence holder had a conversation with a female member of staff and handed her a large black bin bag, which was then removed by the member of staff to the rear of the shop and placed out of view. On completion of serving of the powers notice, a Trading Standards officer immediately went to the rear of the shop and carried out an inspection of the rear area, and there took possession of the bin bag. It was returned to the front of the shop where another officer was speaking to the premises licence holder, going through various requirements of aspects of age-restricted sales. There, the contents of the bag were found to be a substantial quantity of what would be described as standard pack cigarettes, and on closer examination, the cigarettes were found to have non-English language print on them in respect of health warning and other information. And the brand names were found to be Marlboro Touch and Parliament Blue. Trading Standards state that due to the packaging and print not being in English, both branded items contravene the tobacco-related product regulations of 2016, in that any health wording on tobacco products should be clearly displayed in English within the UK, which resulted in those items being non-compliant. They detailed that in total there were 235 packets of Parliament cigarettes and 104 packs of Marlboro cigarettes within the bag. And all the packets were found to have non-English labelling, and as a result were in contravention of those regulations. The tobacco was seized, sealed in evidence bags, and no time did the premises licence holder make any significant statement or denial relating to the items and their possession by him, and he agreed to disclaim the rights of ownership of those and sign them over to Trading Standards. As part of the subsequent inquiries, Trading Standards submitted samples from the seizure to the brand holder, which is Philip Morris, for examination and authentication. And they reported that the items submitted were genuine products produced in Turkey between October and November 2023, and having been produced there, they were for sale only in the domestic Turkish market and should not have been within the United Kingdom. This would also mean that the duty and taxes which were due on those cigarettes would not have been paid on the products recovered from the shop on that day. In their review application, Trading Standards highlights Section 144 of the Licence Act 2003, which specifically deals with keeping smuggled goods on licensed premises. They further cite that they had information on the 31st of January this year a report from a member of public alleging that a vape had been sold to a minor at the premises at 7:40 a.m. on the 30th of January. Trading standards state that the trade in illegal tobacco harms local communities. It affects honest businesses operating within the law and undermines both local and national efforts which have been made to reduce smoking and improve health. The availability and typically lower price of illicit tobacco also encourages young people to take up smoking. And they contend that no meaningful conditions can actually be put on a premises licence to deal with smuggled goods. Therefore, as a responsible authority, they seek a revocation of the licence, as this would send a clear message that the licensing authority will not tolerate the sale or storage of smuggled goods, smuggled tobacco, with any licensed premises in Mid-Sussex. As stated, it was a supporting representation from West Sussex County Council Public Health. They are attached in full Appendix 5. In their representation, they state that the commission of the offences that have taken place show that the licensing objectives are not being continually upheld. They are very supportive of the recommendation by Trading Standards to consider the review of the licence to limit further criminal activity. They highlight that the offences include the sale of illicit or unpaid duty tobacco by way of packaged cigarettes without standard packaging, and there is also additional intelligence alleging the premises have sold vapes to children. And they state that each instance of these activities is of extreme concern to the Public Health Directorate. They cite that selling illicit tobacco undermines public safety, increases crime and disorder, and they point out that cigarette warning labels are an effective source of information for smokers of the harms caused by smoking, particularly when they're large and graphic. Many illicit brands carry no health warnings at all, and the ones imported illegally from countries with smaller health warnings are written in other languages and therefore unreadable to a UK audience. They also point out that illicit tobacco also plays a significant role in the funding of organised crime, criminal gangs with strong links to drug dealing, money laundering and people trafficking. And they set out at section 25 of the report their concerns in respect of the sale of illicit tobacco. It reduces the public impact on tobacco tax rises and increases the demand for tobacco products, therefore undermining efforts to reduce harm from smoking. Illicit tobacco products hook young people into tobacco experimentation and use because they're more affordable, putting children and young people at risk. Illicit tobacco products also mislead young tobacco users by not displaying health warnings and sometimes involving children in illegal selling activities. Illicit trade takes tax revenue away from the government, which could otherwise have been spent on the provision of public services, instead directing such funds into the hands of criminals. The illicit trade strengthens corruption and weakens good governance, and also tobacco companies have been known to use loopholes in tobacco control and government systems to indulge in the illicit trade of tobacco products. In conclusion, they state from a public health perspective, the sale of illicit tobacco is of extreme concern. It fails to promote the licensing objective of the prevention of crime and disorder and public safety. And they also point out that the sale of illicit tobacco raises serious questions as to whether the designated premises supervisor is a fit and proper person to be trusted with the responsibility of selling alcohol, tobacco and nicotine products. And they fully support the request by Trading Standards for the Licensing Committee to seriously consider a revocation of the premises licence, and they believe it's necessary, proportionate and reasonable in order to prevent further criminal activity by this licence holder and prevent further undermining of public safety. Also in the report attached to Appendix 6, you'll see that Sussex Police have submitted representations in support of the application on the grounds of the prevention of crime and disorder. They too express concerns regarding the motive of the management and the operations from within the premises. They state that the selling of illegal cigarettes, which are assumed to have been smuggled into the country to avoid the higher duty of value of duty, would have needed duty tax and to be paid if they were genuinely sold in the UK. They highlight that the supply chain of foreign duty paid or counterfeit tobacco products is often controlled by large-scale criminal organised crime groups who can distribute vast amounts of illegal products at a wholesale level. They point out that the retailer made a deliberate attempt to conceal the cigarettes from Trade and Standards officers, thus leaving the police having to question what other legal activities the retailer has turned a blind eye to maximise their profits. They state that if the motive is purely driven by an illegal financial profit, whether the premises licence holder should remain suitable trusted traders to be responsible for the retail dispensing of alcohol, including ensuring due diligence checks to prevent underage sales to children or vulnerable adults. And they also highlight the previous 6-week suspension issued by this licensing committee and concur with Trade and Standards that they fully support the request to seek the revocation of the premises licence. I would point out that to the panel that they will be aware that this particular premises licence was subject to a review application on the 8th of November 2023, following an earlier application by Trade and Standards. This application was as a result of the premises selling alcohol to a child during an underage sales test purchase operation, which occurred on the 27th of June. The panel decision at that hearing was to suspend the premises licence for a duration of 6 weeks. It should be noted that this suspension has not taken effect, as the premises licence holder has lodged an appeal against this decision with the Magistrates Court, and it's still waiting to be listed and heard. Any decision made by the panel does not take effect until the appeal has been concluded. Now, in the legal context, the review has been applied for under Section 51(1) of the Licensing Act, and Section 52 of the same Act deals with the determination of the review. Obviously, if you have any questions in respect of the actual legislation, you have the Council Solicitor to answer those questions. I have set out also, for the benefit of the panel, Section 144 of the Licensing Act of 2003, which relates to the keeping of smuggled goods on licensed premises. The licensing objectives the Licensing Act 2003 requires representations to address the 4 licensing objectives, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, the promotion of public safety, the prevention of a public nuisance, and the prevention of harm to children and young persons. And in the report, I've highlighted various parts of Section 182 of the Licensing Act, which is the statutory guidance issued by the Home Office. Parts which I will point out and highlight. The 11.16, the 2003 Act provides a range of powers for the licensing authority, which it may exercise in determining a review where it considers them to be appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. And at 11.19, where the licensing authority considers that action under its statutory powers is appropriate, it outlines what steps can be taken, which are to modify the conditions of a premises licence, which includes adding new conditions or the alteration or omission of existing conditions, to exclude a licensable activity from the scope of the licence. However, in this case, the only licensable activity is the sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises. To remove the designated premises supervisor, to suspend the licence for a period of not exceeding 3 months. And at that point, I would note to the panel that a previous decision has been made to suspend the licence for a period of 6 weeks, which is still in abeyance, or to revoke the licence. Now, in deciding which of these powers to invoke, it's expected that the licensing authority should, so far as possible, seek to establish the cause or causes of the concerns that the representations identify. The remedial action taken should generally be directed at these causes and should always be no more than an appropriate and proportionate response to address the causes of the concern which instigated the review. At 11.24, the statutory guidance states that a number of reviews may arise in connection with crime that is not directly connected with the licensable activities. For example, reviews may arise because of drug problems at the premises, money laundering by criminal gangs, the sale of contraband or stolen goods, sale of firearms, or sexual exploitation. It points out that licensing authorities do not have the power to judge the criminality or otherwise of any issue. That is a matter for the courts. The licensing authority's role when determining such a review is not therefore to establish guilt or innocence of any individual, but to ensure the promotion of the crime prevention objective is upheld. Reviews are part of the regulatory process introduced by the Act, and they're not part of criminal law and procedure. There is therefore no reason why representations giving rise to any review of a premises licence need to be delayed pending the outcome of any criminal proceedings. Such reviews will arise after conviction in criminal courts of certain individuals, but not all. In any case, it is for the licensing authority to determine whether the problems associated with the alleged crimes which are taking place on the premises are affecting the promotion of the licensing objectives. Where a licensing authority is conducting a review on the grounds that the premises has been used for criminal purposes, its role is to solely determine what steps should be taken in connection with the premises licence from promotion of the crime prevention objective. It is important to recognise that certain criminal activity or associated problems may be taking place or have taken place despite the best efforts of the licence holder and the staff working on the premises. In such circumstances, the licensing authority is still empowered to take any appropriate steps to remedy the problems. 1127, the statutory guidance points out that there is certain criminal activity that may arise in connection with licensed premises which should be treated particularly seriously. These are the use of the licensed premises for the sale or storage of smuggled tobacco and alcohol. And at 1128, finally, the statutory guidance points out that it is envisaged that licensing authorities, the police, the Home Office, Immigration Enforcement, and any other law enforcement agencies which are responsible authorities will use the review procedures effectively to deter such activities and crime. Where reviews arise and the licensing authority determines that the crime prevention objective is being undermined through the premises being used to further crimes, the guidance states it is expected that the revocation of the licence, even in the first instance, should be seriously considered. The report outlines the financial implications that the final decision made by the panel in this matter is subject to an appeal at Magistrates' Court by any party to the proceedings. And I shall just lead the panel through the appendices. Appendix 1 is the application for the review submitted by Trading Standards. Appendix 2, you will find the current premises licence. At Appendix 3, there are photos of the store itself, which will give some context as to the location of the store for the panel. Appendix 4 has the papers supporting the Trading Standards review, and I will point out to the panel that on the first several pages of the attachment are photographs of the cigarettes. So you can actually see the quantity and the types of cigarettes which were found, and in fact the bag that they were found within. At Appendix 5, you have the full representation made by West Sussex County Council Public Health, and at Appendix 6, you have Sussex Police representation. Obviously, you have Trading Standards and Sussex Police here to expand on the review and their own representations, and the premises licence holder to make his representations in regard to the application itself. That's a report in front of the panel. So I welcome any questions in respect of the report, if there are any.
Thank you very much, Ms. Byrne. We're now inviting Mr. Aston, West Sussex Trading Standards, if he wants to ask any questions from the licensing officer.
No, Chair, I would thank him for his comprehensive report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the police, I'm sorry, I can't read your name from here, I beg your pardon.
No, that's fine. Good morning. I'm Peter Jeffrey, the Police Alcohol Licence Officer for Mid Sussex. Likewise, again, Mr. Bryant has provided a very comprehensive report outlining the concerns that the police licensing team have regarding the premises. We'll have no further questions, please.
Thank you very much. We now invite the representative from the premises license holder to ask questions to the licensing officer?
No, thank you.
No questions. Thank you. And does any other panel members have any questions to the licensing officer?
Mr. John Bryan, thank you very much for your comprehensive report here. On the report, it mentions on 31st of January 2024, the responsible authority received a report from a member of the public alleging that a vape had been sold to a minor at London Road Food and Wine Shop, which is now called the Bodrum, at 7:40 a.m. Now, which is the responsible? Is it the standards, or is it West Sussex standards, or is it our district council licensing team? And also, if that was the case, did you take any action after receiving the report? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. The responsible authority in respect of that was Trade and Standards, and I'm sure Mr. Aston will outline further in respect of that information that was received for the panel's information.
Okay, thank you. We now invite Mr. Aston to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. I apologise, but I've got rather a comprehensive report myself, which I will try and sort of cut down to prevent myself repeating what John has already outlined. West Sussex County Council Trading Standards have instigated a standard review of the premise licence under Section 51 of the Licensing Act, as you heard. Trading Standards believes this premises is undermining the licensing objectives regarding the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and the protection of children from harm. Trading Standards' purposes for making the review application is to ensure breaches of the relevant legislation are brought to the attention of the Licensing Committee in order for them to consider the matter fully and to consider available options. We respectfully invite the Licensing Authority Committee to review the premise licence of London Road and Food and Wine, known as Bodrum, and determine if it is appropriate to revoke or suspend the licence, invoke specific conditions to the current licence, or remove the DPS. By way of background to my report, I'd like to bring to your attention the work on the sale of and supply of illicit tobacco as part of a larger operation known as Operation CC. Operation CC is a joint initiative between National Trading Standards and HMRC. Trading Standards offices in West Sussex are taking action on the ground locally as part of a broader strategy that tackles the 3 tiers of criminality, with illegal factories abroad being shut down by HMRC and Border Force intercepting smuggled goods and cash at the UK border. Illicit tobacco trade undercuts law-abiding businesses, it funds other organised crime with its proceeds and increases the burden on honest taxpayers. HMRC estimated the illicit market in tobacco duty and related VAT at 2.8 billion in 2021 and 2022. NTS Director Wendy Martin said the illegal tobacco trade harms children, wider communities and businesses and props up organised crime. That's why I am delighted with the success of Operation CC, which clearly demonstrates the benefit of this new joint approach to tackling this vile trade at every level from the street upwards. Richard Lass is the Head of Operations at HMRC, Fraud Investigation Service, and he said the ongoing collaboration between HMRC and NTS shows how serious we are about tackling the illegal trade in tobacco. No crime is victimless. Trade in illegal tobacco undermines legitimate traders, including small independent shops in mid-Sussex that serve local communities, and takes funding away from our vital services. That's why coordinated activities such as Operation CC is vital to ensure that we are creating a level playing field for businesses and citizens. In the last financial year alone, under Operation CC, nearly £12 million worth of illegal tobacco products have been seized by Trading Standards under this initiative. Again, as background for the committee, illegal tobacco can take many different forms and there can be regional variations in the name that's given. These are the definitions generally understood by health and enforcement partners. Cigarettes, illicit whites or cigarettes which have no legal duty in the UK. Counterfeit cigarettes and tobacco are legally manufactured and supplied by a party other than the original trademark holder. And genuine cigarettes from other countries that are sometimes smuggled into the UK without duty paid. As well as cigarettes made for the UK, genuine cigarettes may include those intended for sale in another country that have been smuggled into the UK, or duty-free cigarettes being illegally resold rather than being for personal use. This is likely to be the case in this instance. As the government will also, as the committee will also be aware, as trade in illicit tobacco trading standards with government support have been taking enforcement action on the possession and illegal supply of vapes, and this has been widely reported both in the local press and nationally. The committee will be aware that illegal sales of vapes to children is of particular concern, with new evidence coming to light that exposure to chemicals such as lead and nickel found in some illegal vapes can affect the central nervous systems and brain development in children. In respect of this specific matter before you today, I'd like to make the following comments which I believe will be a concern to the licensing authority in this committee, and I will demonstrate that the individuals operating from this premise have been undermining the licensing objectives as we've already set out. On Wednesday the 3rd of January, officers from West Sussex County Council carried out an unannounced visits in East Grinstead Town Centre after receiving reports that some businesses were selling oversized vapes and vaping products to children under the age of 18. They had reason to attend the premise at 2 p.m, as you've heard, and they entered the premise at London Road, known as Bodrum, for the purpose of an unannounced inspection. As you've heard, on introducing themselves, they were completing the serve notice powers under the Consumer Rights Act to Mr. Karam. As the officers were explaining the reasons for the visit and completing paperwork, Mr. Karam had a conversation with a female member of staff, handing a large black bin bag, which was then removed by her to the rear of the shop while the officers were present and placed out of view. On completion and serving of the powers notice, Officer Paul Rogers immediately went to the rear of the shop and carried out an inspection of the rear area of the stockroom. And on his return, he had taken possession of a bin bag and returned to the front of the office of the shop, where John Redpath was standing and going through the requirements regarding the various aspects of age-restricted sales with Mr. Karaman. Paul Rogers then directed his colleague's attention to the contents of the bag. This was found to be a substantial quantity of what we would describe as standard pack cigarettes. And on closer examination, the cigarettes were found to have non-English language print on them in respect of health warnings and other information. The brand names, which you've heard, were found to be Marlboro Touch and Parliament Blue. Due to the packaging and print not being in English, both branded items contravene the Tobacco-Related Products Regulations 2016, because they had no health warnings and on tobacco, which should be on clearly displayed in English within the UK, resulting of these items being non-compliant. At this time, the officers noted the store was busy with customers, with a constant uninterrupted stream of people through the shop and the till point as the officers dealt with the fine paperwork. As such, it was not possible to question Mr. Karaman at the time. And as you've heard, in total, there were 4,700 sticks of Parliament cigarettes and 2,080 sticks of Marlboro cigarettes within the bag. All the packets were found to have non-English labelling as a result and were in contravention of the previous mentioned tobacco-related products regulations. They were seized by the officers and signed over. Are guilty of an offence under the tobacco products regulations may be liable on summary conviction to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 months or a fine or both, or a conviction on indictment to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years, or a fine or both. As part of the investigation process, items were submitted to the brand holder, Philip Morris, for examination and authentication. And as you heard, the brand holder confirmed that they were for the Turkish market and were produced between October and November 2023. Having been produced, they were for sale only in the domestic Turkish market. They should not have been within the United Kingdom. This also means that duty and taxes could not have been paid on the products recovered from the shop on the day. We as a responsible authority would also highlight the following, Section 144 of the Licensing Act regarding the keeping of smuggled goods, namely tobacco on licensed premises. A person who, subsection 2 applies, commits an offence if he knowingly keeps or allows to be kept on any relevant premises any goods which have been imported without payment of duty or which have otherwise been unlawfully imported. Under the Customs and Excise Management Act, we believe the premises was knowingly concerned in the fraudulent evasion of duty chargeable on tobacco products. And this is contrary to Section 170 of the Customs and Excise Management Act. And further, that this offence was committed with the consent and connivance of the company director, Mr. Carolan. It's important to note that according to Companies House records, the sole director of Yoho Limited, Mr. Ibrahim, is listed as a Turkish national. Having recently returned from Turkey myself, I confirm they are significantly cheaper to buy in Turkey, approximately £2.50 per pack from a legitimate retail outlet. Illicit tobacco usually sells between £5 and £7 per pack in this country. The selling of illicit tobacco products fails to prevent further crime and disorder by funding those who illegally import and produce such products, not to mention the profit made by the seller in respect of the avoidance of duty and relevant taxes. I'd like to draw to the attention of the subcommittee to the LGA handbook on the Licensing Act 2003, which states the primary purpose of a review is to act as a deterrent to prevent further breaches. It can also prevent any licensable activities which are causing concern from happening in future. The purpose of prosecution is punitive, and for licensing offences, a review with a threat of revocation or suspension can often be more of a deterrent. Further reasoning in bringing this review, obviously, with regard to the revised guidance under Section 182 of the Licensing Act, which you've already heard from Mr. Bryant, states where authorised persons and responsible authorities have concerns about problems identified at premises, it is good practice for them to give licence holders early warning of the concerns and the need for improvement, which trading standards have done on numerous occasions previously over numerous years at this premise. A failure by the holder to respond to such warnings is expected to lead to a decision to apply for a review. As Mr. Bryan pointed out, in 1124, a number of reviews may revise in connection with crime that is not directly connected with licensable activities. For example, reviews may arise because of drug problems at the premise, money laundering by criminal gangs, and the sale of contraband or stolen goods, the sale of firearms, or the sexual exploitation of children. Licensing authorities do not have the power to judge the criminality of otherwise any issue. This is a matter for the courts. The licensing authority's role when determining such a review is therefore to establish the guilt or innocence, is not therefore to establish the guilt or innocence of an individual, but to ensure the promotion of a crime prevention objective. Reviews as part of the regulatory process introduced by the 2003 Act, and they were not part of the criminal law and procedures. There is therefore no reason why representations giving rise to review of a premise licence need to be delayed pending the outcome of any criminal proceedings. Some reviews will arise after conviction in the criminal courts of certain individuals, but not all. In any case, it is for the licensing authority to determine whether the problems associated with the alleged crimes are taking place on the premises and affecting the promotion of the licensing objectives. Where the licensing authority is conducting a review of the grounds that the premise have been used for criminal purposes, its role is solely to determine what steps should be taken in connection with the premise licence for the promotion of the crime prevention objective. In 1127, it states there is certain criminal activity that may arise in connection with licensed premises, which I do want to emphasise, which should be treated particularly seriously, and these are the use of the premise licence for the sale and distribution of drugs controlled under the Misuse of Drugs Act and the laundering of the proceeds of drugs crime. There is a case to be answered in respect of money laundering offences and the proceeds of crime from the sale of illicit tobacco in particular. Proceeds of crime is the term given to money or assets gained by criminals during the course of their criminal activity. 1127 goes on to say, as the base for the organised criminal activity, particularly by gangs, and for the sale of or storage of smuggled tobacco and alcohol. And lastly, under 1128, it is envisaged that licensing authorities, the police, Home Office, and other law enforcement agencies, which are responsible authorities, will use the review procedures effectively to deter such activities in crime. Where reviews arise and the licensing authority determines that the crime prevention objective is being undermined through the premise being used to further crimes, it is expected that revocation of the licence, even in the first instance, should be seriously considered. This committee will also be aware that following a licence review on the 8th of November 2023, where a child was sold alcohol at the premise, further conditions were imposed and the premise licence was suspended for a period of 6 weeks. In conclusion, the responsible authorities do not have confidence the licensing objectives are or will be promoted by the continuation of licensed activities at this premise, and deem it both proportionate and necessary for the committee to consider a review of the premise alcohol licence to limit further criminal activity by the licence holder and to act as a deterrent against such illegal conduct. Since 2000, HMRC estimates this criminal activity has resulted in tax revenue loss of £51.3 billion to the Treasury for tobacco alone, which supports the vital services that we all rely on. In relation to the tobacco products mentioned, whilst all forms of tobacco are harmful, due to the low prices of illicit tobacco, we believe it makes it harder for smokers to quit, easier for non-smokers to start, and ex-smokers to relapse. The trade in illegal tobacco harms local communities, affects honest businesses operating within the law, and undermines local and national efforts that have been made to reduce smoking and improve health. The availability and typical lower price of illicit tobacco products also encourages young people to take up smoking. As I mentioned, selling illicit tobacco products fails to prevent further crimes. Thank you. Not to mention the profit made by the seller through the avoidance of tax and duty. No meaningful conditions can be put on a premise licence to deal with smuggled goods. Therefore, the responsible authority seeks a revocation of the licence. This would send a clear message that Mid Sussex Council will not tolerate the sale or storage of smuggled tobacco or the sale of alcohol or vapes to children. The responsible authority believes this would send out a strong message across Mid Sussex and the county that where premises are found to be undermining licensing objectives, robust sanctions are administered. Thank you. Take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aston, for your very comprehensive summary. We now invite the licence holder to sum up, please.
Doesn't matter what I say, it's not going to make sense. And things just happen.
Sorry, I think the premises licence holder should hear the representations from the police before he makes his points.
Yes,
Do you,
apologies, yes.
do you want to ask if anyone's got any questions of this?
Anybody on the panel have got any questions?
So it was just my question coming back, earlier question coming back from Mr. Bryan to Mr. Peter Aston. Was any action taken when you received the report on vape was sold to a minor at London Road?
The information that we received led to the visit to the premise on that day.
That was the information?
Yeah, that was the reason for the visit, so that was to go and advise. So what we tend to do is when we receive reports of illicit, of vapes vapes being sold to children, then our first part of our job is to go and advise the trader and make sure that they've got due diligence procedures in place to avoid the sale of vapes, and they're fully aware of the legislation surrounding that. So that was the reason for the visit, which instigated this review.
Okay, Mr. Aston, am I looking at the wrong information here? So on 31st of January 2024, you received a report, but the inspection was on the 4th of January. Am I looking at wrongly?
Is that in the application?
In the report. So on 4th of January 2024, you, during an unannounced inspection visit, trading standards enforcement officers, obviously that's when the visit was taken, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the day of the visit.
Yeah, and the report was on 31st of January 2024, the responsible authority received a report from a member of the public alleging that vape had been sold to a minor at London Road.
Perhaps I could help clarify for the assistance of Councillor's question. On page 7 of the review application, it's put in the final paragraph, further on the 31st of January 2024, the responsible authority received a report from a member of the public alleging a vape had been sold to a minor at London Road Food and Wine at 7:40 a.m. on the 30th of January 2024. I think that's where the confusion has occurred. It's mentioned in the actual review application, the 31st of January.
Sorry, yeah, that was, has any action been taken in respect of that? No. Obviously, this is, that was mentioned in the review application, because we'd already been visited there and found more serious issues with regard to the tobacco.
Okay.
Thank you.
So regarding the 30th of January report, would you look at CCTV? The 30th of January? I think it was the 30th of January where a member of the public reported a vape had been sold to a minor. Would anybody look at the CCTV in the shop to assess whether that had happened? That might be a question to the police.
We don't have the, in certain circumstances, and vapes would be included, we wouldn't have the power to actually seek viewing of the CCTV. We probably could have used our powers under the Consumer Rights Act in respect of the illegal tobacco or potentially counterfeit tobacco, but no, we tend to ask either licensed authority officers or the police to visit and seize any CCTV footage.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now I invite the senior licensing officer to ask direct questions to Mr. Ashton.
No, Chair, I've got no further questions with regard to the trading standards representations.
And any responsible authority, the police?
Yes, so good morning. So just to summarise that Sussex Police respectfully request that the committee consider the findings that have been introduced and announced today from the unannounced visit by Trading Standards on the 3rd of, get the date right, the 3rd of January in question. Sussex Police would just like to ask the committee just to consider the actions that have happened from the venue, and that during the search there was no excuse provided to the trading standard officers on why such a large amount of tobacco was there. Rough calculations of 339 packets of cigarettes is simply not an amount that ever be considered for personal use. We also question why this tobacco was hidden and why an attempt was made by a member of staff to conceal the tobacco and remove the tobacco from the shop front during the visit by our trading standard colleagues. Again, a very rough calculation would estimate that the tobacco in question in the bag would have an average retail value of around about £5,000. This stock, as I said, was not challenged with no excuse provided and was simply signed off and discarded to trading standards for keeping. £5,000 is a lot of stock to lose. This gives Sussex Police the suspicion that this is the involvement of an organised crime group that can simply afford to lose £5,000 worth of product, which will be simply replaced. Organised crime groups, as we've heard, do not do a lot of the work themselves. They employ vulnerable people, or they exploit vulnerable people, often without pay or under the threat of violence, conduct this work. Sussex Police also question the due diligence that the venue demonstrates, and this not just for tobacco, but for any age-restricted project. So this also includes alcohol and any gaming items such as lotteries. Due diligence needs to be conducted at every sale of alcohol, not just for the age restrictions, but if that person is vulnerable, or if the person is capable, or the person is already drunk. Due diligence must be conducted at every point of sale. And what we're hearing today is that the venue has lacked on more than one occasion to conduct due diligence when conducting sales of restricted products. So the question we ask the committee is to consider, can they still be trusted to conduct the due diligence every time? Sussex Police never like coming to a hearing. We always attempt to work with venues and we use a stepped approach, but we cannot conduct a stepped approach with a venue if their activity is illegal. We cannot allow any activities to, we cannot negotiate with any activities that are illegal. So therefore we fully support trading standards and Sussex Council here with applications that they are to seriously consider the revocation of the licence of the premises. Unless there's any questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. Apologies for jumping the, we now invite the premises licence holder to direct questions. I'm sorry.
We need to ask the premises licence holder if he's got questions for Peter Aston or the police, because he didn't get the opportunity to ask questions.
Yes, that was the next.
So ask if he's got questions for trading standards and if he's got any questions for the police.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, we are asking then the premises licence holder if he has any questions for the police or the trading standards.
When the alcohol situation happened in the premises, being serving alcohol to young kids, the person which is served shouldn't be on the till. And in that time, we had the deliveries. We were busy with deliveries. So anyway, situation has happened. And when we come down here, the first meeting, Mr. John and Mr. Aston now as well mentioned a lot of reports being about the shop, but we've been serving the young kids alcohol. The main question is, you received that many reports, and I got CCTV, we got CCTV cameras working 24/7, and it's keeping that record up to 90 days. Why didn't you come to check we served or not? Anyone can report any places, maybe they don't like us, maybe something happened. And you never come to the shop to check anything, and now we are here. You mentioned in a lot of reports, that's a bit not fair. And the second thing is about the cigarette. The cigarette, I personally, I smoke cigarette, and then I mentioned that I told the officers as well, this is not for sale. And I showed them all my Kashinkaris invoices, and nothing here been said. I bought for myself, and I was gonna smoke. And I don't know, it's just, it feels like it's very big criminals being done, and we get blamed, and I don't know what else to say, because it doesn't matter what I say, it's not gonna make sense for you. It doesn't matter what reason I say, it's not gonna make sense for you. So no further things. That's the only thing, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, we'll invite the senior licensing officer to direct questions to the license holder.
Yes, thank you. The only question that I would have, which may assist the panel, is if the quantity of cigarettes in the bin liner was for your own personal consumption, one, there was obviously quite a considerable amount there, but two, why were they stored in a back bin liner behind the counter rather than being either on your person or being at your home address? Because it seems rather strange that they're in a black bin liner, which you then instruct a member of staff to take into the rear storeroom if they're your own cigarettes.
Because I got night before from the market, fruit and vegetable market, and then I was gonna take her home. But in that time, we were doing vegetable. We finished the fruit and vegetable, and then officers came in. That's the only things that's happened.
So just to confirm, where were those cigarettes actually purchased?
I got from one of them lorry drivers in a fruit and vegetable market in Leighton.
Right, just to confirm what you've said there, so you purchase illegal cigarettes from the fruit and vegetable market from a driver in where you get your fruit and vegetables?
Did you? No, I'm not gonna deny this one.
Thank you much. And I invite Mr. Ashton to direct questions to the license holder.
Thank you. Would you not accept that if the goods which you might have known or otherwise were from Turkey, that you would have known that UK duty and tax had not been paid, regardless of whether they were for your personal use, they should not have been stored on licensed premises. Do you accept that?
No, I made a mistake to buying that, which is not paid tax, the cigarette. I made a mistake on this one, but it wasn't gonna stay there. I was gonna take home and then I smoke a day, like around 2 packs a day. So that's things. It's not stored in the shop.
So are you saying that you didn't sell any of these?
No.
Any of this tobacco?
No.
Well, as a local authority, we do not accept that.
That's why I said, doesn't matter what I say, you're not gonna accept that one. Because you're not gonna believe. Because already maybe you made your own mind about that things. And doesn't matter whatever I'm gonna say, it's not gonna make sense for you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Jeffrey, did you have any questions for the license holder?
Pretty much just building on what Mr. Aston has just said. You know, we are talking 340 packets of cigarettes. Can you remember how much you paid for them?
Sorry?
Can you remember how much you paid for those cigarettes?
About 1.5, 1,500.
So the amount of cigarettes you bought, you would have known, as you are already retailing genuine cigarettes, as you said, you have receipts from cash and carry, you understand the average retail price for a packet of cigarettes, and that 16.5% of the retail cost of those cigarettes needs to be paid in duty, along with a further £6.33 on top. You would have known buying that amount of cigarettes for £1,500 that you are actually missing out on over £3,500 worth of tax. I put it to you, that's an illegal action, and as a responsible person who should have no criminality and have no criminality on your venue, you should be fully aware that what you've done was illegal and you shouldn't have had those cigarettes on your persons or bought them in the first place. Again, which refers to the question why we asked the committee today to consider, are you people fit to be dispensing restricted products?
I know I did mistakes, and that shouldn't happen. Okay, but that wasn't for sale, and the only thing is it was cheap, so I said I can smoke it. So that's the only things I did it. If it is illegal, how they bring it in this country? That should Home Office or wherever the border office, they should control this one more carefully.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Does any panel members have any questions for the license holder? None? Thank you.
Just need to make sure that the premise is like that nobody has any further questions from Peter Ashton or PC Jeffrey. Because I don't think we're through all, so I think you should just ask everyone whether they have any further questions for those two.
Okay. Thank you. Has anybody got any further questions for the
My chair, no.
And does anybody have any questions they want to ask the responsible authority?
or anybody has any questions they want to ask the responsible authority?
We're done. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we're now asking Mr. Ashton to Trading Standards to sum up. I apologise earlier, I jumped the agenda a bit.
So it's Mr. Ashton to sum up.
Sorry? Yeah. That's what we already had.
I don't think he heard you. I think we just need to invite him again.
Okay. It might be my mistake. Well, we will ask Mr. Ashton to sum up again if any further.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate that the responsible authority do not have confidence that this premise will uphold the licensing objectives going forward. It is clear and very disappointing in our view that the premises had no intention of promoting the licensing objective, despite the 6-week suspension of the premise licence on the 8th of November. this premise, and the individuals involved have shown a total disregard for the law over a number of years, and we believe robust action by the committee should be taken to serve as a clear deterrent to other businesses who sell alcohol to children, then go on to sell and store smuggled tobacco. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the panel have any further questions? Okay, thank you. And the license holder, yes, I have already asked one. And finally, we invite the license holder to sum up. We're asking you to sum up. If you have any further.
No.
Okay, thank you.
So does anyone have any further questions?
Yeah, I have to start.
So the panel members will now retire to deliberate and make a decision, and they will then return after that point.
Thank you. Apologies for the long delay. There was a lot to take into account. The panel's decision has been to evoke the license.
Just to say that you will receive written reasons of the decision within the next 5 working days. You have a right to appeal the decision to the Brighton Magistrates Court. The appeal has to be lodged within 21 days of being provided with the written notification of the decision, and that will be detailed in the correspondence that you receive as well.
Thank you. I herewith declare the meeting closed at 12:40. Please be seated until the live stream has ended. Thank you.